Good morning. It is Tuesday, August the 20th, and this is The Drill. Thank you very much, and my name's Ron. I'm the only true conservative in the United States of America today because I'm the only one who makes the presumption for the status quo. My podcast, The Drill, is about demonstrating how to beat the left each and every day, how to be a true conservative and beat the left each and every day. My podcast is made possible by Spreaker.com. It can be heard on iTunes, Spotify, Google, and YouTube. My email address is storytimes@hotmail.com. I'm on Twitter @RonaldHardgrove and on Facebook @The Drill. So I started my socio-political odyssey as a conservative Republican, and I knew that I was a conservative Republican because of where I stood on the issues, which sounded reasonable, but whenever I engaged a liberal in debate, I found that I couldn't win. I soon figured out that the issues were in reality a trap. The issues were created by the left for the left. So, is there any way for a conservative to win? Yes, by defining what it means to be a conservative and redefining the issues. By becoming a true conservative, I will not only win, I will never lose. And the purpose of my podcast is to demonstrate how to defeat the left each and every day. So, how do we know? In this segment of the broadcast, I'm going to explore how it is that we know things. And in this particular instance, how do we know when someone is racist? We know that racists exist. In some cases, racists are black, Louis Farrakhan. In some cases, racists are Mexican, La Raza. And in some cases, racists are white, David Duke. The left contends that only whites can be racist because they claim racism is an expression of power, and whites are the ones in power. This contention is wrong. The left is defining racism connotatively, metaphorically and poetically, rather than denotatively. The denotative definition of racism is, quote, the belief that some races of people are better than others, unquote. So if you believe that some races of people are better than others simply by virtue of their race, you are a racist. As far as whites being in power, that too is wrong, with the left using power in a connotative sense. When we look at reality, at government at all levels, we find that people of many races are, quote, in power, unquote. The fact of the matter is that racists, such as the individuals mentioned above, are racists because they believe that members of their race are superior to all other races automatically. I conclude that what the left is trying to do is create a new stereotype, white racist. Defeating this tactic is as simple as calling the left on it. In other words, if you hear anyone claiming that another person is a racist and doing so without evidence, you should shame them for stereotyping. A shorter way to do it also is to simply ask, do you hate so-and-so? In this particular case, let's use Donald Trump as an example because his name comes up frequently in regards to being a racist. So if somebody says, well, you know, Donald Trump is a racist, then ask them, so you hate Donald Trump then? And they will give you a blank look and they will have nothing to say because they don't want to be associated with hate. The left considers themselves to be, about the party of love and that they have nothing to do with hatred. So that's a good short, and you want to keep it short. Whenever you're dealing with the lefty, you don't want to have to go into a 20-minute diatribe. You don't want to have to do a lot of explaining. You keep it nice and short, and you'll find that you're going to win each and every time. So when I come back, I'm going to be talking about moral neutrality. And thank you very much. Welcome back. Moral neutrality. The left is effective at creating unnecessary change by neutralizing conversations. The left refuses to acknowledge ethics because socialism cannot stand ethical scrutiny. The left cannot argue that socialism is the right thing to do, so the left takes right and wrong out of the conversation. And they do this by neutralizing the conversation. For instance, the left substitutes words and phrases that are ethically neutral. For instance, they substitute the word stakeholder for the words conflict of interest. Unfortunately, many people who call themselves conservative participate in this subterfuge. They participate in and even initiate neutral conversations. The true conservative should eschew value neutrality and insist on using their judgment. Conflict of interest exists. It should be pointed out and condemned. Those who pass moral judgment are true conservatives, and those who pretend to be neutral are not. And if you are a true conservative, you win and can win every time. Whereas if you're going to pretend to be neutral, you'll never win. And when I come back, I'm going to be talking about destroying left-wing myths, in this case, the sexual revolution. Thank you very much. Destroying left-wing myths, the sexual revolution. In the 60s and 70s, the sexual revolution was talked about on television and the radio. It was written about in newspapers, magazines, and books, yet it was fiction. No such event ever occurred. And I draw this conclusion for two reasons. First, no one has ever defined the term sexual revolution. So the term ends up meaning whatever anyone wants it to mean whenever they want it to mean it. In other words, the term means nothing. Second, no one can or has ever pointed to a person or event that started or ended the so-called sexual revolution. Considering that the left is a creature of revolution, it follows that the left mythologized a sexual revolution to create a socio-psychology of anxiety, fear, and insecurity. So-called conservatives perpetuate those psychological instabilities by referring to the sexual revolution as though it was a real event. They should stop it immediately. When I come back, I'm going to be reading a part of the introduction from the book by David Mamet called The Secret Knowledge. Thank you very much. Welcome back. And The Secret Knowledge is a book that's written by David Mamet, and he is a Hollywood producer. He produced The Unit, among other things, and he is talking in his book about American culture, how it's been affected by the left. Who does not want justice? Each of us, of course, wants justice for himself, and all but the conscienceless few realize that we deserve well from each other. The question is one of apportionment, for justice cannot be infinite. There's a finite amount of time, knowledge, wisdom, and money. And to tax the mass endlessly, even in the pursuit of justice, must cause injustice somewhere. One may be just to the trees of the Northwest, impoverish loggers, and raise the cost of home construction. If all prisoners are allowed unlimited and endless access to all courts, whose time and energy is as finite as every other thing, the court system must stint other applicants. One may extend justice to the snail darter and cripple the Port of New York. And a legitimate aversion to racial profiling may not only inconvenience, but mortally endanger the traveling public. My revelation came upon reading Friedrich Hayek's The Road to Serfdom. It was that there is a cost to everything, that nothing is without a cost, that energy spent on A cannot be spent on B, and this is the meaning of cost. It represents the renunciation of other employments of the money. He wrote that there are no solutions, there are only trade-offs. Money spent on more crossing guards cannot be spent on books. Both are necessary. A choice must be made, and this is the tragic view of life. It made sense to me. Now, like the Fibonacci sequence, I began to see it everywhere. Milton Friedman pointed out that the cavil, quote, "It would seem that a country that could put a man on the moon could provide free lunches for its school children," unquote, missed the point. The country could not supply the free lunches because it put the man on the moon. There's only so much money. I understand this because I have a checkbook, and my reading inspired me to realize the equation did not differ at the national level. There's only so much money, and choices must be made. Money, I further learned, was just an efficient way of keeping track of the production of individuals, of their work, and the capacity of that work to benefit their fellows. The more the money moved around, the more the mass benefited. The government could do little with this product save waste it. It did not produce. It could tax or confiscate, but it could not allocate with greater justice than the free market. It could and should then provide only those services of which the free market was incapable: the roads, the sewers, the judiciary, the streetlights, the legislature, and the common defense. The notion that it could do more was an illusion and nowhere demonstrable. And nowhere demonstrable. The government could only profess to do more, its bureaucrats and politicians playing on our human need for guidance and certainty, and indeed our desire for justice. But these members of government, right and left, were as likely to exploit their positions as you or I, and like Brecht, as likely to mine human credulity as to alleviate human need. Politics then seemed to me, like business, a delightful panoply of deceit and error and strife, a brand new tide pool for the naturalist. And that is from The Secret Knowledge by David Mamet. And basically what Mr. Mamet is getting at here is, when you get right down to it, is reality. The essence of reality is limits. Everything that's real is limited. It's defined, it's delineated. If you take a look at the universe, they say that the universe, considered in its totality, is infinite. And that part of the universe is imaginary, not real. That what is real are the objects in the universe, the things that can be measured in one way, shape, or form. So, and that's what he's getting at, is reality. The left wants to deal in psychology. They want to deal in fantasy. And because of, if they can deal in fantasy, then anything is possible. For instance, Mr. Mamet says that there's only so much money to go around. The left would argue, no, it's not the case. That we have printing presses. We print money. And so that all we have to do is continue to print money, print more money. If we have printed enough money to finance the astronauts that went to the moon, then we can print more money to put free lunches in the hands of school children. Not true, but that's a discussion for another time. So when I'll be back in a minute. Thank you very much. Welcome back. Who are the true conservatives? They are the people that understand that conservatism is not just political but cultural as well. They are patriotic people who use common sense. They make judgments, refuse to speculate, speak clearly and definitively, and are not afraid to say no. They are open-minded, asking why rather than why not. They are consistent, credible, and influential, not ashamed of their existence, unafraid to learn or correct their mistakes. They are normal Americans. And that brings me to the conclusion of another episode of The Drill. And until next time, thank you very much for listening, and have a great day.